Good afternoon and welcome to the Public Works meeting for May 2nd. We are just rolling right along. Okay, any changes to the agenda?
No changes.
If there are no changes, then we are ready for a motion.
Chair, I make a motion to approve minutes for April 18, 2022.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the April 18th meeting. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, and we are on to the next agenda item, which is the Consultant Services Agreement with KBA, Inc. for the 212th Street Preservation Project, and we have Eric Connor.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Well, my name is Eric Connor, and I'm the construction manager in the city's Public Works Engineering Department. Our upcoming 212th Street Preservation Project will be the second project of two in 2 years on our South 212th Street. This is a federally funded project that will provide new asphalt paving, surface, sidewalk improvements, curb ramp replacements on 212th from the west side of the Green River Bridge to the city limits on Aurelia Road. The previous project completed on 212th was located between East Valley Highway and 212th Avenue South, or 72nd Avenue South, excuse me. On the left is an example of the asphalt's current condition on 212th within the project limits. And on the right is an example of the completed condition of last year's project. There's approximately 31,000 square yards of similar asphalt within this year's section of 212th that will be ground to a depth of 2 inches and replaced with approximately 4,700 tons of new asphalt. In addition to the new paving, the project will be replacing 5 curb ramps, nearly 200 feet of sidewalk, and approximately 600 lineal feet of curb and gutter. The construction contract on this project was bid on April 5th and is scheduled to go to council for approval and award to the low bidder tomorrow evening. This afternoon, I am seeking the committee's authorization for a consultant services agreement with KBA. KBA is a firm that specializes in in providing these services for local municipalities on federally funded projects throughout the region. With the authorization of this contract and contract execution, KBA will provide construction management, contract administration, inspection, and quality control. They will be fulfilling this service with a resident engineer, an inspector, an administration consultant, and a quality control consultant. Thank you for the opportunity for this to briefly introduce you to the project and request your approval of KBA's contract. If you have any questions on the project or KBA, I'm happy to answer them.
Questions? Okay, and this is going to be paid for by a grant from the Puget Sound Regional Council and by B&O dollars, correct?
Correct, yep.
If there are no questions, then we are ready for a motion.
Chair, I move to authorize the mayor to sign the consultant agreement with KBA, Inc. in the amount of $205,032 for contract administration, quality control, and inspection of the 212th Street Preservation Green River Bridge to Aurelia Road project, subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the Public Works Director and City Attorney.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to move this on to the full council for approval for the mayor to sign the consultant services or the consultant agreement with KBA, Inc. in the amount of $205,032. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. It will be moved on and put it on tomorrow. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
We are now going to hear from Cheryl Rolcik-Wilcox on the 76th Avenue South North Segment Project, Utility Easement, and Temporary Construction Easement.
Hello, I'm Cheryl Rolcik-Wilcox. I'm the city's property and acquisition analyst for the Public Works Department. And as you're likely aware, the city will be constructing the 76th Avenue South North Segment project very soon. The project will construct road, so you can see where the properties are that the project will be along. The project will construct road and drainage improvements along 76th Avenue South from South 212th Street to 1,000 feet south of South 212th Street, elevating this entire segment of the road above the FEMA 100-year flood elevation. The project requires that the city acquire a utility easement and 3 temporary construction easements on portions of 3 parcels owned by Blue Properties. And this, the parcels are located at 21218 76th Avenue South. Blue Properties has accepted the city's offer of $2,500 for a 94-square-foot utility easement, $58,464,000 for 3 temporary construction easements for a 6-month period, and $14,500 in compensation for damages to the property. And that's for a combined total of $75,464,000. And this will come out of the 76th Avenue South North Segment Project Fund. Are there any questions?
I have none.
I'm just curious, is that pretty common to have to compensate for damage in that?
It
use?
depends on what kind of damage is being done, but yeah, it is. It's part of the appraisal. The appraiser evaluates it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Councilmember.
Chair, I move to authorize the mayor to sign all documents necessary to acquire utility easement and 3 temporary construction easements on portions of property owned by Blue Properties LLC located at 21218 76th Avenue South for an amount not to exceed $75,464, subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the city attorney and public works director.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to authorize the mayor to sign the documents to acquire the 3 temporary construction easements for a total of $75,464. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes and will be on the agenda in the near future.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now we have Drew Holcomb coming forward with a consultant services agreement with Consor.
Hi, thank you. I'm Drew Holcomb from Public Works Design, and I'm here to talk to you about a couple things today. But first off, I'll talk to you about the Sanitary Sewer Comprehensive Plan update. So this is an important plan that we update regularly, and we're scheduled to do this coming year. And you can see in this picture here, I've got we're looking at that's either a wet well or a dry well they've got open there, and you can see we have some of our city operations staff. That's Dwayne Oliver from our sewer department, and then Chase Tomjack from our survey department. And then those bubbles are kind of what you see down to the right is a sewer manhole, and then on the top there is what you find in a wet well. So I'll just give you a little sense of some of our sewer there. So just a little background. The city prepared sanitary sewer comprehensive plans in 1998 and 2012. And, we're kind of coming up. It's about time to start looking at that and update our plan. And these plans evaluate our system and prioritize improvements. And having a set list of improvements really helps when we're seeking grant funds if they're available. And this picture I have here is a map, and that shows different areas throughout Kent that are not served by sewer. And so that's something that we're going to look at as part of this plan and see how we can come up with ways to serve these areas. And, part of that will be looking for grant funds. The plan is adopted by, it's required by DOE, and so we will have them review it, Washington State Department of Ecology, and then King County UTRC, as well as we will bring it to you guys for formal adoption. So the city of Kent has separate stormwater systems. So older cities, on the East Coast in particular, and Seattle has some, it's called combined sewer overflow, and where they have storm and sanitary sewer. But city of Kent, we're somewhat newer construction, so we have a separate storm system from our sanitary system. And so this is helpful because it cuts down on the amount of stormwater we're treating that doesn't necessarily need to be treated with your sewage waste. That said, we still want to monitor and figure out how much flow we have and how much capacity we have in our system. And then to the right, there's a picture of King County Wastewater South Plant located in Renton. I'm sure many of you have smelled this driving by on I-5. But this is where Kent's sewage drains into the King County wastewater system, which eventually ends up at this plant where it's treated. So I mentioned, a big part of this plan is the sewer system evaluation. So the first part of that will be performing flow monitoring. So that involves setting different locations throughout the city where we can monitor how much flow is in our sanitary sewer system. And this is, a multi-month process, and we want to make sure that we capture flows during our dry season, which would be summer, and then peak flows during wet season, which would be winter. And so it varies so much because there's inflow and infiltration that gets into the system. So inflow is inflows like your footings and foundation footings where stormwater is getting into the system, and infiltration would be cracks in the pipe where stormwater, ground flow is getting into the pipes. And so that varies based on where the groundwater is, based on how much it's raining. So the flow monitoring helps establish what capacity our system has so that we can more accurately model it. And a big part of this contract will also be coming up with a model so that we can, going in the future, we can have that program to determine if there's a big increase in population in this area. That's the kind of thing you can put into the model and kind of see what it spits out. And you can see on this map there's some blue locations and red locations. The consultant that we're working with, Murraysmith, that's who this contract is with, they found a number of locations that King County has, and we're able to use some of that data, so that cuts down on the number of locations we have to monitor. Additionally, another big part of this plan, which is also required by DOE, is working with our land use comprehensive plan, forecasting population upgrades and ensuring that we have capacity to serve the increasing population projections. And let's skip to the next slide here. And so based on all of those things, they're going to develop a capital improvement plan, and then we'll have a 20-year CIP and a 6-year CIP. And these will help prioritize projects in dire need, and then just kind of help determine what we can do, what needs to be done first. And having a CIP, again, as I mentioned, helps find grant. It helps us get grant funds if there are any available. The other projects I'm coming to talk about are accepting grant funds from transportation projects. There's a lot more funding for transportation projects than there is for sewer and storm projects, but there is some out there, particularly with areas that are unserved. And then these pictures you can see here to the right is from our 2020 sanitary sewer CIPP lining project. That stands for Cured in Place Pipe. And so what they did there is that's taking pipes that have big cracks in them, so there's a lot of infiltration of groundwater, or the pipe's just failing, and they create a pipe in the location of that pipe using that kind of sock thing. And there's different ways to do that. You can do it with concrete and cure it with UV, for instance. So I just thought that was a good picture because it kind of illustrates some of the projects that are likely to come out of this. This is a good way to maintain and keep our system functioning without having to dig everything up. Like in that 192nd photo there to the left, you can see what it takes to dig up a pipe. And that's a shoring box. And so the contractor's down in there repairing a pipe. And finally, so the budget for this project, the scope of work that Murraysmith prepared for us is $679,565. And this project has a total budgeted cost of $800,000. Just to touch on the pictures a little bit, there on the left is some non-flushables that clogged up one of our pump stations. And then in the center there's the Linda Heights pump station on the West Hill. And then on the right is one of our city sewer staff, operations staff, repairing a damaged pipe there. So you can see another shoring box. So that's all I have for you on the sanitary sewer comp plan. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Any questions? Either of my council members?
So the total budget is $800,000, but this is coming in at $679. Is it coming in under budget, or is it there'll be another phase to this?
No, so that's staff time that will likely make up the difference there. We're still
Oh, okay.
anticipating to be around 800,000.
Gotcha,
But there is,
okay.
significant staff time in working with the consultant. We got to make sure we're directing them in the right way and we got what we need from them as part of this, so.
Okay, great. Thank you for that clarification.
Councilmember? Okay. No more questions, but I will take this opportunity to again remind people that nothing should go down our sinks, nothing should go down your toilet, nothing should go down any of the pipes except for things that come from your body and toilet paper. No paper towels, no wipes. Even if the wipes say they are flushable, they are not really flushable. With that, if there's nothing else, then yes, our director.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick item for folks at home who might be watching, they see the price tag. That's a lot of money. We understand that's a lot of money, $679,000. As Drew pointed out earlier, we do regularly, I think it was a term you used, Drew, or periodically update our sewer comp plan. As Drew noted, we did it in 1998. We did it again in 2012. Those were what I would call light versions of an update. We have, going through our comprehensive land use plan right now, some significant updates and upgrades in our expectations for land use and the intensity of our land use, i.e. we're going to be serving a lot more people with the same amount of real estate that we have today, and with people comes sewage. So we need to make sure that the big item here, and the reason we're going for a more full update, is a good chunk of the cost here is modeling the system to take a look at what we have today and where we might have deficiencies in the future. Because I talked with our Economic and Community Development Director, Kurt Hansen, earlier today, and one of the things he pointed out, we have, or we're going to be recommending height restriction, raising the height restrictions on buildings, say along Benson, to increase the population along Benson where we have transit. It's smart growth. But again, along with that comes a lot more sewage. So we want to model the whole system comprehensively and take a look at where we might have issues, because replacing the pipes, as Drew's picture showed earlier, we can line pipes throughout the city where we know there's not a deficiency, but where there is a deficiency, we'll have to be doing construction like is pictured on the left, which is dig up the pipes. And because gravity runs largely on, sewer runs largely on gravity, you've got to go deep down to replace the pipes, and it's very expensive. It's really the basis. Obviously, the backbone of the city is the water system, but the lowest utility is sewer, and then therefore most of the time the most expensive to work on. So all of that to say, we got to make sure that we know where the smallest pipes are and where we could have sewage issues 20, 30, 50 years down the road. So as development comes in, we know where we need to make improvements. And that is the basis of doing the plan right now as we're getting ready for our comprehensive plan update.
Thank you very much for that. And in my zeal to get going on the agenda items, I neglected to introduce Director Chad Barron and Cheryl Viethseth, who is very handily keeping all that is happening during this meeting. So glad that you were both here and that I remembered that before the meeting was over. Okay, that is no more. If there are no more questions, then we are ready for a motion.
Chair, I move to authorize the mayor to sign a contract with Consor North America, Inc., doing business as Murraysmith, Inc., to prepare the 2023 Sanitary Sewer Comprehensive Plan Update, and in the amount not to exceed $679,565, subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the city attorney and public works director.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to authorize the mayor to sign the contracts with Consor North America, DBA Murraysmith, Inc., to prepare that 2023 Sanitary Sewer Comprehensive Plan Update in an amount not to exceed $679,565. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. It has been approved, and thank you very much. With that, I believe we are to the end. Did you have anything else for us?
I do. I have two more items.
Next. You know what? My next page is not that. But go, then, please, continue.
Thank you. So I'm here now. The next two items I have for you are better news. I'm offering money for you to accept. So this one is from TIB, which is Washington State Transportation Improvement Board. As you know, we have a good relationship with them, and we're looking to continue that on this project. So this is the Russell Road non-motorized improvements. And so this project is going to be constructing a sidewalk from Hogan Park to Meeker Street. And so Hogan Park's on the right of your screen and Meeker Street's on the left there. So this grant is worth $750,000, and it includes design and construction. You can see here there's open ditches and a nice little dirt path, but we'd like to pipe those ditches and put an actual sidewalk to encourage connectivity and pedestrian use along here, along this stretch of road. And so this will connect Meeker Street with Hogan Park and the Green River Trail. So this is completing a much needed gap there. In addition to the sidewalk, I believe we'll also be putting speed cushions on Russell Road to help reduce vehicle speeds. So as I mentioned, this is part of a bigger project. So we have come to you previously with grants from TIB to put a sidewalk in front of Hogan Park there, and then a sidewalk on 240th Street in front of our operations center. So you can see the orange kind of shows where we have existing sidewalks, and then the blue is the proposed TIB projects. And so we've spoken with TIB about combining all these so we have one construction project instead of three separate ones. And so this slide kind of lists all the grant funds we've got from TIB to make this happen. And they like our idea of combining all this. So we're hoping to get that out shortly. But yeah, this will connect a bunch of sidewalks and make it a lot easier to access the Green River Trail and Meeker Street. I believe that's all I have on this. Yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions?
I did have a question. Will the Russell Road Hogan Park portion, will that be the same design standards that we see on Meeker and elsewhere these days, where there's the buffer between there's like the sidewalk and then there's like a greenway?
So this is not part of Meet Me on Meeker, so it's not going to conform to the Meeker Street standards, but I'm the engineer working on the Hogan Park design, and we're looking at putting it on the other side of the existing ditch that's there. So it will be a nice wide buffer, very, very large, but it's yes.
Okay, thank you. No further questions here.
Okay, Councilmember Kaur?
No, we like getting money.
And so you mentioned putting it on the other side of the ditch and then still covering the ditch and laying pipe?
So that was a separate project. Well, it's all one project now, but that's the Hogan Park specific is where we're doing that. The Russell Road, Meeker to Hogan Park, that's likely we're going to fill those ditches that are there.
So in between, what is that? Between Meeker heading down to Russell Road and then is where it switches over?
Yes. So next to the park where there's parking, we're proposing putting a sidewalk closer to the parking stalls. We don't want to take out any trees, and we want to leave the existing ditch. And when you drive that, it looks very nice with the trees there in that ditch. So, but we're trying to get pedestrians away from the road and the travel. So it's going to be on the parking lot side, and we'll shift the stalls over to make it so that we can fit a sidewalk in there. For just that Hogan Park standard. And then there will be a planter strip on 240th. And then I haven't really dug into the design yet on Russell Road, but we'll have some separation there.
Always good to save the trees. Mm-hmm. Okay, 4E, we are ready for a motion if there are no other questions.
Chair, I move to authorize the mayor to accept grant funds from the Transportation Improvement Board for the Russell Road Meeker to Hogan Complete Streets Award in the amount of $750,000, amend the budget, authorize the expenditure of the grant funds accordingly, and authorize the mayor to sign all necessary documents subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the city attorney and public works director.
Oh, second.
It has been moved and seconded to authorize the mayor to accept the grant funds from the Transportation Improvement Board, the TIB, for Russell Road, Meeker to Hogan Complete Streets Award in the amount of $750,000. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes, and we like getting money, so thank you very much.
And saving the trees, thank you.
Yes, and while saving the trees, keeping the pedestrians safe, whole package deal here. Okay, we have 4F now, Meeker Street Multimodal Project.
Yes, so this project is coming to you with grant funds from PSRC, the Puget Sound Regional Council, specifically the TAP grant. So that's Transportation Alternatives Program. So we submitted a grant for this project. Let me go to the next slide here. This kind of shows Meeker Street, and you're all familiar with Meet Me on Meeker and what we're trying to accomplish there, you know, improve the street and increase multimodal transportation. So I was last year talking to you about the 64th and Meeker Intersection project, which we also have PSRC funds on for design. And this is the green segment to the right of that Meeker and 64th bubble there. So this project will, let me go to the next slide. So this is a little bit stretched version there to make it a little bigger, but the intersection is to your left there, and then the project limits is the kind of where I wrote project limits towards the center of the screen. So we're going to use the existing curb and gutter, and to the north of that, there'll be a bike lane in both directions, and there'll be a curb separating that, and then parking, and then we're going to take Meeker Street is currently a 5-lane road in some sections, and we're going to take that down to 3 lanes. And so it'll be 1 lane in each direction and then a turn lane. But this project will construct a mid-block crossing with a rapid flashing beacon, and there'll be islands associated with that. So this kind of just gives you a sense for the layout that I'm trying to describe there. Let me see if my next picture, yes, my next picture is a little better. So this is a rendering of what I'm talking about. So this is the mid-block crossing, and you can see the crossing signs with the rapid flashing beacon there. And it gives you a sense for the bike lane. So the bike lane, this is, we're designing this within the right-of-way. So we're planning to use the existing curb and gutter and keep that sidewalk the same. And then the bike lane will be asphalt. And this is an interim measure until we get adequate funding to complete this whole stretch, because as you can see going back, we have future phase there. So we're looking to come in the future improve all this. So this is kind of a stopgap to get that bike lane further and create a safe bike lane at a reasonable cost. So this is a rendering of what we're looking at there. Let me go to the next slide. So this grant is for $149,904, and it's towards preliminary engineering. The total project cost of this is $1.9 million. That includes design and construction. From this grant, the city has a required match of $23,396. As part of this grant, the city was ranked pretty high, but we were selected only for preliminary engineering funds at this time. But we were ranked #1 on the contingency list for construction funds. So, we're hopeful that we'll be selected for that, given that we're #1 on the list. So, yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions you have about this grant.
Questions?
No?
Yes, Director.
Thank you, Chair. So the goal here, the proposal today is to accept the grant funds, federal grant funds for the design. As Drew pointed out, we're first on the contingency list, so if more federal money becomes available, we would hopefully be in a position to take that money. So getting the design going now puts us in a better position to take the contingency funds later. But it does federalize the project. So there's a time span of 10 years that there's an expectation that the city would either build or repay the money. So you either build it with either another set of federal grant funds or city funds, and or repay the funds. So that's just something I like to point out. So as the money's being accepted, we know what we're getting into. But as Drew pointed out, we think we're in really good shape to get additional grant funds to help complete this stretch. So excited to have it available to us. The state funding that was in the transportation budget, we plan on using, if you go a couple slides back, Drew, where it said next or future phase on the right, one more slide forward. on the right side of that photo, it says future phase. That moving over towards Thompson Avenue to the east or closer to 167, that's where we were planning on using the state money to complete that section. And the timing would be to try and finish it when the new Kaiser Permanente site's under development, which is going to be where that big white square is on the south side where the Kmart used to be. So a little more information.
Thank you.
Just to add on to that, as Chad mentioned, it does federalize this project, but the 64th and Meeker intersection, which we also have grant funds for, that one has also been federalized. So we're hoping to combine the two projects. So.
Thank you very much. Then if there are no further comments or questions, we are ready for a motion.
Chair, I move to recommend the council authorize the acceptance of federal funds in the amount of $149,904 for the Meeker Street Multimodal Kent Elementary School project and direct staff to establish a budget for the funds.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to recommend that council authorize the acceptance of the $149,904 for the Meeker Street multimodal project by Kent Elementary School and establish the budget for the funds. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes, and be able to get that and start our design.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have our final piece, 4G, which is information only. We have Rob Brown and the 6-year Transportation Improvement Program.
Good afternoon, committee. As you mentioned, my name is Rob Brown, Public Works Engineering, Transportation Engineering Manager. This afternoon, I'm going to give you an update on the 6-year Transportation Improvement Program. We are getting pretty close to presenting this to council for adoption. In fact, it will be a public hearing and then time for council to consider that on May 17th, so 2 weeks from tomorrow. So moving right along. To tell the story of this year's Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP, we created a story map with some help from our colleagues in GIS. Unfortunately, we had some technology challenges, so we're going to have to watch static slides instead of the story map. But at the very end, I have a QR code that anybody watching this will be able to point their newer smartphone at and open the webpage. We're also going to publish this on social media working with the communications office, so this should be widely available for people to look at. So again, I apologize for the static displays, but this is what people see when they look at the story map. So the 6-year Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP, is the city's short-range transportation planning document. This comes from, the majority of it comes from the Transportation Master Plan, which was adopted last year, and that's our long-term 20-year plan. This 6-year plan is required by the Washington State Growth Management Act, and the city is required to adopt it by June 30th of each year. This is a minor update from last year's TIP. Last year was a major revision after the Transportation Master Plan was adopted, and this is just a minor update that includes projects that were completed and a project that is potential for a grant eligibility. So the first slide that people will come through after the introduction is a short slide on what the TIP is, and this just tells it it's our 6-year 23-28, so next year through the following 5 years update to our short-term transportation plan. And since the TIP is an extension of the Transportation Master Plan, we also talk about the 5 goals for the city's transportation projects. And these 5 goals are stewardship, strategy, placemaking, safety and health, and connectivity and options. And the TIP is our short-range plan that tries to balance those goals with the project needs. And then they'll then come to an overview of what the 6-year TIP is. And so this will discuss our interdepartmental coordination, our community presentations, the projects that we're proposing to be removed, the projects we're proposing to add, and finally an interactive web map of the proposed projects and locations. So our interdepartmental coordination, this process started many months ago with a discussion with our leadership about which projects would be completed and be proposed to remove, and then which projects we would propose to add this year. Once that project list was developed, we had 2 working sessions with our colleagues in Economic and Community Development, Long Range Planning, and also in the Parks Department to discuss those projects, which ones would be removed and added. Removed projects pretty easy; those are the ones that are completed. But which projects are added there's some discussion there as to which of the transportation master plan projects we want to move forward into the 6-year TIP. We've also been engaged in ongoing coordination with the city clerk's office and the law department to make sure we're meeting the legal requirements and following the proper procedures to get the TIP adopted. The next piece of the story map will be the community outreach. And this is just a short overview of the outreach we've done to inform the residents, the community, and business partners of our proposed changes to the TIP. Due to COVID issues earlier in the year and also the time of year, darker hours, colder, most of our outreach was done virtually. We started in January with a presentation on the projects to the Kent Rotary Club and also the Kent Bicycle Advisory Board. We followed that in February with a presentation to the Land Use and Planning Board. In March, we had a longer presentation, council workshop to discuss the TIP projects. And this month, we have this afternoon's update, and then as I mentioned later this month on the 17th, we will be holding the public hearing at the regularly scheduled city council meeting, followed by an opportunity for council to consider the TIP for adoption. We'll move on to the completed projects. The first project is a pedestrian crossing of James Street at 2nd Avenue North. This project provides an enhanced crosswalk with a rapid rectangular flashing beacon to make a non-motorized connection between the North Park neighborhood and Kent Station. This project was funded through a grant from Sound Transit for access to transit. This connects, again, the North Park neighborhood to Kent Station, but also to the transit center. And this project was completed last year. And the pictures you're seeing here are of that crossing. The second project we're proposing to be removed is the South 212th Street Preservation Project between 72nd Avenue and 84th Avenue South. This is an important corridor for freight transit and commuters, and this project was funded through partially funded through a grant from the Puget Sound Regional Council Preservation Program, and this project was completed last year. And then finally, the third project we're proposing to be removed from the 6-year TIP is the Willow Street Shared Use Paths. This project will create mixed-use paths on both sides of Willow Street between the Union Pacific Railroad and the 4th and Willis roundabout. This adds opportunities for non-motorized recreation as well as transportation. And this project does tie into the improvements that were made as part of the roundabout project. So it looks like one continuous corridor from the Union Pacific through the roundabout. Future project will extend the paths across the Union Pacific tracks to connect to the Interurban Trail. And this project was funded with local funds. The project is expected to be completed later this spring. Now we'll move on to added projects. Get my notes here. There's only one project we are currently proposing to be added to the Transportation Improvement Program this year. This is a preservation project on East Valley Highway between South 196th Street and South 212th Street. This was formerly two projects. The intersection of South 212th Street and East Valley Highway was a separate project, and we're combining these projects. Both these projects will replace the asphalt pavement on this important freight and commuter route. And this project is one that we are going to seek preservation funding through grants from the Puget Sound Regional Council. We are proposing to add two plans to the Transportation Improvement Program this time. The first one is the Central Avenue Plan. And this will be a resident and business-driven plan to reimagine what Central Avenue would look like between Central and SR 167. And the primary focus of the plan will be non-motorized improvements, and so how we can turn this more ped and bike friendly. The second plan we're proposing to add is a citywide greenways plan. This would develop routes that focus on non-motorized travel through the city. These type of routes on a greenways plan are typically parallel to arterial routes that have higher volumes of freight and automobile traffic. And so by developing a greenways plan, we can find parallel routes that are away from those arterial streets but still make those vital connections. And these are mostly through neighborhoods. And this is primarily a plan that is signs, pavement markings, maybe some traffic calming type devices to keep those neighborhood speeds down, which has the added benefit of improving neighborhood livability, but also providing those non-motorized connections on parallel routes. And then finally, the last part of the story map is an interactive map. So start with the map of the city. And so all of the projects that are proposed in the TIP are included in this interactive map where people will be able to use their mouse to click on a dot as a spot location or a line as a segment of a project. And clicking on that will bring up a little description of the project, the anticipated or proposed cost, and also the timeline the project would start. And then the last piece of the story map is contact information if people would like more information on the TIP or other transportation issues. I'm happy to have them contact us. People really interested in talking to people about that. And then finally, this is the graphic of the QR code. So it should work. I tested it on my phone too.
Yep.
So you should be able to take a picture of that with your smart device, and that should open the story map up.
Yep.
Great. So that concludes my presentation. I would be happy to answer questions about the proposed TIP.
Questions or comments?
No, just I love the QR code thing. That's a great way to advertise it.
I bet it's going to be really nice for the residents to be able to click just as
Right.
when they have a question about what something is. That's going to be a nice feature.
Yeah. And as I mentioned, we are working with the communications office to try and get this pushed out in social media and get some advertising for this, because we really do want people to look at our 6-year plan and give us feedback and comments on that. So we're doing, again, still with COVID and the time of year, it's hard to do in-person public outreach, but yeah, we would love it if people would review our plan and give us comments and feedback.
Okay. With that was information only. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And our meeting is adjourned.